everybody, and welcome to a very special board gaming video. Today I'm not going to be doing a list video, nor am I going to be talking about a specific game and doing a review. Instead, I'm going to do more of what is like a retrospective on something that has become very, very popular just in the last year or so. And it's really interesting because it goes against a lot of what I say in a bunch of my videos, which is a lot about replayability. Now, a lot of these games have versatility, and they've got a lot of variety. They're a lot of fun to play. They're great games, but the replayability is completely gone. And these are games that are, well, I personally like to refer to them as play and burn. And the idea being that these are games where after you play them once, then effectively you know what's going to happen. You know how it's going to work, you know what's going to occur, or at least you know some of the possibilities that can occur, and so it kind of ruins the game for you and you don't want to play it anymore. One example that I have is actually Time Stories. Again, these are tremendous games. Time Stories is absolutely amazingly fun. It is a great game. Some of the other games that really fit into this category, Risk Legacy was the first one that in my recent memory was released that really fit this. The other one was really Pandemic Legacy, both the seasons 1 and, well, the red and blue version, so to speak, too. And then the other really major one is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Now, that particular one came out in like the early 80s or something like that, but only recently has really become popular here in the US. Suffice it to say, Time Stories in particular was released earlier this year, and it's a great example of this type of game. The thing that we have to ask ourselves is really, are we getting an amount of fun that is adequate for what we're paying for? So for example, with Time Stories, the way it works is that the base game acts merely as exactly that. It's a base upon which the stories themselves are being built. The stories themselves come in the form of large decks of cards. These have the information on what's going on, who's going to be there, the characters that you play, the items that you collect, the events that occur, the locations that you go to, blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff. The entire game is in these decks of cards, while the actual board and the pieces that the game comes with simply act as, you know, just the basic tokens and the basic things that you use to navigate these card decks. It's a really wonderfully well done thing and all this good stuff, but the thing is that with any of these play and burn games, what you're really talking about is typically a story. You are doing a narrative story. I did a video not too long ago, a few months ago, where I talked about some of my favorite games that utilize narrative stories. And so I remember a couple of the ones that I mentioned were like Mage Knight or other tile placement games like the D&D placement games, things of that nature, that really do a good job of immersing yourself within the game. Another good example is Arkham Horror, since this is actually somewhat similar to that. But suffice it to say, it's something that I really enjoy. The thing is that it's interesting, and this is really why I wanted to make this video, is that, again, these take away the replayability aspect. I have played the base kit, or whatever you want to call it, the base story for Time Stories, which is called Asylum, and that's why it reminded me of Arkham Horror. Where the idea is that you're going into an asylum for the criminally insane, and you have to investigate a thing. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything that's going on, but suffice it to say, a thing is going on, and you need to go figure out what it is, and ideally try to stop it. That's the point of the game. So there's a couple of problems with these games. First and foremost, I have played it. I know what happens, I know how to figure it out, I know where to go, what to do, etc., etc. The thing is that I have to ask myself, would it be fun to do it again? And for me, the answer is, meh. I really don't know. The only way that I could really personally have fun playing this again is if I play with a completely new set of people. Because playing with even one of the same people that I played it with would make it so much less fun, because any discussion that we have would be inevitably biased towards we know what's going on and we know where to go and what to do and how to get it done. And same thing with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. With that, you have individual case files that you're going through, and it's the same thing where you're doing an investigation, trying to figure out who did what, etc., etc., etc. And again, really great games, don't get me wrong, and obviously Risk Legacy and Pandemic Legacy, same thing. Part of the thing with these, though, is that you actually physically destroy components in some of them. The instructions actually say, tear this card up, tear this piece up, do this, do that, do the other thing. And so even if you wanted to, you literally would not be able to play it again. So it's really interesting. Like, Risk Legacy in particular does that a lot. But again, it's really the dynamic of the game. It's how it's designed, where from one game to the next, you're changing the borders of the individual players, you're changing how the map is actually oriented, all this kind of stuff. And on top of that, depending on what decisions you make, is going to alter what you have available to you and all this kind of stuff. Again, I don't want to spoil anything particular for any of these games, because they are all very good. They're fun to play. I love narrative storytelling. I've talked many, many times that I am an old school D&D player. Not only that, but pretty much any RPG that you throw at me, I am more than happy to at least try out. I really enjoy that aspect of games. In board games, though, it's not only is it difficult to make that transition, but we run into this problem where now if I play any of those games, at least in part, I know what's going to happen. One way to mitigate this is something that Time Stories is doing, which is to add additional scenarios. In the case of Sherlock Holmes, different cases, new seasons of Pandemic Legacy, things of this nature, which is perfectly fine by me. Right now, Time Stories actually has a second case out now. They're supposed to have another one by the end of this month, which is December. Unfortunately, they don't have it yet. So I'm excited. I look forward to it because I know that this particular company, this what is it, Space Cowboys, good name, is capable of making good quality content that is very, very compelling. And if they can continue to do that, then I am happy to buy these little expansions. They're typically like $20 or $25, and you think about it, it'll take you, maybe like 4 to 6 hours or so to complete it. So 4 to 6 hours for $20 with a few of your friends, that is not a bad trade-off. Same thing with Pandemic and Risk Legacies, respectively. You typically have to play multiple sessions in order to actually complete the game, which is great. But again, at the same time, is it worth it for you personally? And that's really what you need to ask yourself. Is actually physically destroying a game something that you're willing to do? And more importantly, again, this is something that has come up relatively recently, and I'm curious what you guys think about it. Because, I mean, it really reminds me of like the early 90s with these choose-your-own-adventure books. I used to read them all the time. Particularly, I read the Goosebumps versions of the books, mostly because they had really cool covers on them. They were all sparkly and awesome. But it's funny because I read one of those stupid clickbait things. I don't remember where it was from. It was like Distractify or one of those sites. And it was like 50 things that millennial kids will never be able to know about. And one of them was Choose Your Own Adventure books. And so it reminded me of these games, and now within the gaming community, we're having these sort of spring up again. And for me personally, I think that it's coming more from a storytelling aspect, and I love it. I love the fact that we're getting some real, genuine storytelling into board gaming. I think it's something that we really need as like a community or whatever you want to call it. I think that it's very, very important. And as long as these companies can keep coming out with these compelling things, I think that it'll be absolutely amazing. That said, let's talk about a couple of other little things with it. First and foremost, particularly with Time Stories, but also with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, one thing they don't tell you, if you ever play any of these games, have pencils and paper available. Seriously, there is a ton of stuff to remember, and I guarantee you will not be able to remember it. There is no reason to think that you would not have these things available if you were in the actual story. There really isn't. You would be able to pick up stuff and you'd be able to write it down. It is not that bad, really. Some of the other things, again, is as far as cons are concerned, at least as a general thing. I guess this is more sort of like the end of one of my review videos going over the pros and cons for this general category. But suffice it to say, one thing that I don't really enjoy is if you end up playing with somebody who doesn't like the narrative storytelling aspect, or worse yet, who gets a thing and it says like, oh, rip this up or rip up this or whatever it happens to be, they're just like, no, I'm not going to destroy it. No, boo, lame, woo, no. A really good example of this is some of the guys at the Dice Tower. They were originally going to do another playthrough of Risk Legacy, and at the end, literally physically burn the game. Like, actually light it on fire. And the person whose copy it was like, no, I'm not going to let you burn my game. But then at the same time, it's like, you think about it, it's like, but why not? You can't use it again. You can't do anything with Risk Legacy after you're done. At least with Time Stories, like, I can lend this out to my friends or something, and I can be like, here, play it, it's awesome. Or I can be like a moderator for them, and I can just like read the cards and tell them like, this is what you see, this is what you're doing, blah, 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 and not have any actual input in the game itself. That's totally fine, because this game doesn't have you destroy components. But in the games that do, like whether it's opening up a sealed envelope or physically tearing up a card or piece of paper, whatever it is, then there's nothing you can do. And the game is literally useless. Excuse me. It's very unfortunate. It really is. But again, that said, it really comes down to, did you have fun? Did you enjoy it enough? Did you have a good time with it? And was it worth it to you? If you go out and spend $40 or $45 on one of these games, then is it worthwhile to play it for however long it is? In the example of Time Stories, the included story with learning how to play, like just sort of briefly going over the rules for myself because I had read it previously, but going over again, going through the rules, teaching them how to play, and then playing through the scenario that's included here took about 3.5 hours. And I mean, technically I won this game. I got it for free. Woo! But, you know, it costs about $40. And so, you know, that's like $10 an hour. That's really not bad, especially considering that I really would be okay playing this again as long as I played it with different people. And I can just like sort of take myself out of the conversations. I would be happy to do that. Not only that, but with the newer scenarios being like $20 or $25, different lengths of time required, all that kind of stuff, I find this to be very worthwhile. Something like Pandemic Legacy or Risk Legacy, I mean, you're talking about a good, you know, potentially 8 sessions, 8 actual gaming sessions. And again, you know, like $40, $50 or so, that's pretty worthwhile because you're talking about a good 2 or 3 hours per session. That's really not bad. It's not that bad. But if you are a person who absolutely requires that your games are replayable and all this, that, and the other thing, then these probably are not the types of games for you. Same thing with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. One thing that a lot of people are kind of upset about is the base game really doesn't come with a whole lot of cases. There's a lot of like sort of expansion cases that have been published, but not outside of Europe, unfortunately. So hopefully those will get translated since the game is now so much more popular. And again, like, I'm really mostly just curious what you guys think about this. Like, I mean, have you seen this trend? Have you played any of these games? What do you think about it? Are you excited about it? Do you think it's just kind of weird? Like, what do you think brought this on? I'm really, really curious what you guys think, and it just sort of inspired me to make this weird little video. Again, I know that this is very strange for me, and it's a very unusual video, but regardless, I do hope that you enjoyed it. Again, the games themselves, I personally really enjoy them. If you have watched my videos before, you know what kind of gamer I am. You can see the games that I've got behind me, so you can get a general idea of my general tastes, at least. I told you already, I'm a big RPG gamer. If you like those games, then at the very least, try out Time Stories, because it is really, really good. It really is an incredibly compelling, very, very fun game. At least Asylum is. I haven't played the other available scenario, unfortunately. But shh, don't tell anybody. But suffice it to say, thank you guys very, very much for watching. Please put any and all comments in any feedback in the comments below. Again, I really would love to hear what you guys have to say about these kinds of things. But with that, thank you very, very much. Have a very safe and happy new year, and I will see you again in 2016. Happy end of 2015, everybody. Woo! I hope that you had an amazing year this year, and again, I hope that you liked this little video to close out the entire thing. Once again, put any and all feedback on this subject in the comments below. I am very, very curious as to what you guys have to say about it, so please let me know. And as always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking the big giant subscribe button to see more of me in the future, and you can follow me on Twitter at DannyCGamingSci. Thank you so much again for another wonderful year of making videos and generally being awesome. I will see you guys in, well, a couple of days.